Several years ago, the court made an unpopular decision in death penalty cases, and a number of justices were recalled. If the recalls again, how much effect is that going to have on this court?
Yeah, Roseburg, I think, was Chief Justice at that time and was recalled by the voters. There are a couple of things that are important to note that aren't a part of the conventional wisdom story, but are important to understand. Roseburg, the red meat for her being recalled was her position on the death penalty. But that would have never happened. That recall would have never been successful, would have never had the money if it weren't for the insurance industry that funded the recall effort, because they wanted to get rid of her because she had issued rulings hostile to insurance interests. So I think the court is less worried about the actual literal possibility of recall, but they are concerned that an effort like that could get started, but if it could really be funded, how it would be supported. You know, you've got crazy right-wing folks, those would be the only people who would care enough, and yet this is a pretty conservative court that has issued some pretty good rulings for conservative interests. So I just don't think that there would be the right coalition of groups for the recall threat to be realized. But of course, the court has to think about what the ramifications of a ruling might be to people that they would upset, which is another reason why I think justices on the state Supreme Court should be more insulated from that popular will going back and forth. And when people say to us, well, if the court rules against us, should we try to recall them? My view, and I will just speak for me and for NCLR, is no, because we want an independent judiciary. We don't want them held hostage by however many voters you can get together. And sometimes that means you have to put up with decisions in a time.
The Chief Justice on this was talking about the political versus the legal way to change something. And they were also talking about civil unions. It almost as though you hear what they're saying, and yes, we disagree with this proposition, but we're trying to figure out somehow to overturn it. If it's not overturned, is there a way, as the one justice asked, can the state actually order, like I think the state Supreme Court is the one that order the state to come up with a union? And if they do, can that be for all couples that are getting, quote, married, straight or gay?
Yeah, the idea that was put forward by actually one of the most conservative justices who ruled against us in the marriage case, so let's just understand. Anytime somebody who clearly has been hostile to you is putting forward an idea, one should be dubious about what the motives are. And this is a situation where we've won marriage, and I don't want to bid against myself. We've won marriage. That is the term that is used. That is how this culture denominates unions between two people who love each other, that have the highest level of recognition, common vocabulary, respect, and dignity. If we were to all decide as a country, straight couples too, saying, you know what, I don't like the word marriage. I don't want the word marriage. I'm willing to give up my marriage license, have it be a civil union certificate, and then the marriage will just be a religious institution. Then that's a conversation. But why is it us who have to be the ones to say, oh yeah, we'll accept civil union in order to not upset all the people who don't think we should be afforded the right to marry? So I'm not opposed, as just a matter of principle, to that conversation. I don't think it should be people who have been traditionally oppressed and discriminated against who are the ones that have to come up with a solution for our own continued subjugation. That's what's behind some of what Justice Chin was saying, and if the powers that be were to make decisions that got behind something like that, that's fine. I just feel like it's not a solution that we should be pushing for, because it's a solution that just essentially endorses our own marginalization. Okay.
We watched the whole
a very nice person and I really want to answer your question. You know, it's always difficult to make comments on someone else's performance at oral argument when you're not standing in those shoes yourself. Chris Kruger is a fine lawyer. We have worked with him for years. He also argued the marriage case on the other side last year and wrote the briefs. He's an excellent attorney. He's a great advocate. He's been a charm to work with. I will say this. What I will say is this. I think that is a stage, and you know millions of people are watching. I can't imagine the pressure. I know the pressure Shannon felt because obviously we're talking a lot. Shannon's our legal director. The pressure Terry Stewart felt in the city attorney's office. You know, it's the sort of forum where, you know, some people are able to kind of rise to it and, you know, they just feel like they can kind of hit that. They're able to just be good oral advocates. And for some folks, you know, the fabulous writers are great lawyers, and that's a place where they struggle. I will say this, though. I don't think having the Attorney General write a brief and come out in support of invalidating Prop 8 was a huge, huge help and boost to us. And I don't think any of the attorneys' performances make actually any difference, or will make any difference to how the court eventually rules. It's less about performance and it's more about, by the time the court has oral argument, they've been thinking and talking a lot about how they might rule. They're really peppering you with questions. It's really, as you notice, it's less about letting the attorney speak, and it's more about being able to pepper with questions and try to get, sometimes you're trying to convince a justice sitting on the other end of an issue, so you can't really tell. That's as much as I feel like I would say. Yeah. The issue of whether Prop 8 will be applied retroactively is one on which, unlike the revision amendment theory, because we're facing an unprecedented situation with Prop 8, there's a huge body of law that shows that unless an amendment or an initiative is explicitly meant to apply retroactively, it will not be applied retroactively. So I do not think that it is likely that the court will apply Prop 8 retroactively, and I do think those 18,000 couples will continue to have your marriages, upheld. You don't know, can't tell for sure, obviously, but I will say for those couples who did get married, and I'm actually one of them myself, you now have a huge burden, because if the court were to invalidate Prop 8 and uphold our marriages, we're walking in the world with a lot of privilege that we're going to have to be responsible for and have an obligation to do more so that our neighbors and friends can eventually have that same joy and opportunity sooner rather than later.
Thank you, Chris.